Hey everybody, welcome to Wood with Handles, a baseball podcast for fans, by fans. This is episode 7 for the week of May 27th. I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh.
I'm Carl.
First of all, we would like to thank all of our troops who are active in the military, past, present, future. It means more than we can say. I know some of us on here have family who are directly affected by this, and it means a lot. Baseball has a big history with the military, and we want to have a quick shout out to all of our troops and thank them on this Memorial Day. Also, on another note, we would like to take a moment of silence for the victims of Oklahoma City, not Oklahoma City, but the Oklahoma tornadoes. So let's pause for a couple seconds. All right. So first thing we want to talk about is on Memorial Day, all across the league, any team that's playing, and usually throughout this whole weekend, they were all playing in different uniforms with some kind of camo insignia. Most teams are playing white jerseys with camo numbers, camo hats. I even seen that Tampa Bay had camo helmets today. It's nice that they do this, but we had the same discussion on Mother's Day. I mean, is it right that we commemorate our troops one day a year? I mean, the reason we're able to enjoy baseball and live in America, no matter what your political affiliation is the defense that our troops give us, whether it's active or past, present, whatever. Should we be kind of supporting them, or should there be some kind of call out to them throughout the year, other than obviously the Padres' really ugly uniforms, which is, from what I know, a call out to the troops? I mean, should every team have something that's for them, or is it just too much, or should we just avoid it at all costs?
I think that one day is probably, I guess one day is probably enough. You saw every team had their version of, camouflage or some salute to the troops. I think it's a good tribute. I really do myself. If you do it any more than one day, I think it kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. So I think where we have one day to kind of just sum it up and, say thanks to all the troops, all the fallen soldiers, the vets, anybody for Memorial Day, I think one day is probably a good tribute to that.
Well, I think one day, like you guys were saying, is a good tribute. What I would like to see more, though, is maybe MLB should start donating some money to, a troop foundation or something. Because you think about it, the uniforms, the hats, it's all for sale. And, us as fans, we all buy this stuff up. And who does that benefit, though? Mostly baseball. Maybe they should kick some funds, the other way.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it goes to. I would imagine there's some kind of fallen heroes, or I know there's like sacred fallen heroes funds and stuff like that. I could be wrong, but it seems like some money's got to go somewhere, or else this would be like a bigger controversy. But I could be completely wrong. Kind of going on to our next topic, we opened the show with a moment of silence for Oklahoma and the massive tragedy that they had this week with all the tornadoes there. I mean, the pictures are devastating and really sad. Athletes all across all sports are donating. Matt Kemp said he would donate $1,000 for every home run, which it's probably not a topic to joke about, but he doesn't hit many home runs nowadays, so it's not going to be much money. But Kevin Durant, who plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA, he donated $1 million outright. Like, there was no stipulations, just here's $1 million. And I believe then so did the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's just nice to see these athletes do this stuff, because they don't have to, basically. I mean, there's plenty of athletes out there who don't ever donate a penny to anything, and they're just as popular. I mean, a little boy who wants a new basketball jersey, baseball jersey, hockey jersey, whatever, isn't going to not buy it because his favorite athlete didn't donate. So, I mean, they'll be just as popular and famous. I mean, Kobe's and LeBron's, they aren't known for massive donations. I mean, Derek Jeter isn't known for massive donations. These people are just popular. But then you see these athletes go out and they do donate huge amounts of money when these disasters happen. I mean, it's great to see.
Yeah, I think it's a really great idea that athletes and teams are both doing this with the amount of money that each individual athletes make, and we all know they make a ton, and especially teams. Oklahoma City probably had to do it, and I think they probably were happy to do it because obviously the tornado affected Oklahoma right where they play and right down the road. But I think it's a good thing that a lot of players are doing this. It's very honorable. It's very noble. I'd like to see more teams do it and more players do it with the amount of money they make, obviously, but I think that whenever you get a chance to lend to something or you get a chance to donate to any kind of tragedy, I think not only is it a very honorable thing to do, but it's also something very respectable to do that an athlete can show that, hey, we don't care about just making money, but we care about people in need, and hey, we have a ton of money, so why don't we just give some of what we make to help people who are a little less well off and unfortunate than we are right now.
Charity is something that I think we all are. I don't think anybody's against it. I mean, there's always those moments of need, like these disasters where we need things, or other just local things. And it's nice that celebrities, whether they're local or, I mean, someone like Matt Kemp, who's all the way in LA, it's nice to see these kinds of things. And I mean, it gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling that you like. Now we'd like to bring in our guest for the week. It's Luke Peavy, Executive Director of the Jake Peavy Foundation.
We'd like to thank you for coming on, Luke. So before we get started, can you just give us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. Like you said, I'm the Executive Director at the Jake Peavy Foundation. Basically, I help plan and run. We do about 3 large events a year. Try to bring in money to help donate to kind of where Jake, I guess, feels in his heart to allocate it. And we also, get in different requests from other, nonprofit organizations, and we kind of take a look at those and see kind of where we feel that we would like the money to go.
That's awesome. Something we always talk about, or that we want to talk about today, is the fact that really an athlete, a baseball player, or a celebrity, anybody, they really don't have to do charity. And you can be just as popular. There's plenty of famous athletes who have no charities whatsoever, and then there's athletes who are no names or people who aren't celebrities, and they donate tons and tons of money and time to charity. What advantages do you and your brother find of actually spending the time and the money on doing charity?
Yeah, well, I think it's something that our parents instilled in us at a young age. Grew up in a middle class family, but we were always doing something to help others out. And actually, Jake has always had the Jake Peavy Foundation, but actually last year was the first year that we started bringing money in, I guess, from outside. It's always been just Jake's money. And he never wanted it to be publicized in any way, shape, or form of where it went to. He was very particular about that because he didn't want it to look like he was doing it for the praise or, for the recognition, because that is not Jake at all. But we really discussed last year that, with his platform, we felt like we, raise or double, the amount he was given per year, just having a few fundraisers and, like I said, using his platform that he has, to bring money in and just be able to give more, based off that.
It's definitely very admirable. And, the other 2 hosts here are not in Chicago, but I am, and I've already seen a ton of advertisement for the charity event that you have coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, first of all, we have actually a celebrity net raffle going on right now. You can go to whitesox.com/Peavy. Basically, you buy a $2 raffle ticket, minimum of $5, and you get a chance to win all expense paid trip to Chicago if you're from out of the area. We're going to take you guys to a game, and you're also a VIP guest at Jake's Charity Jam. That's June 23rd at Joe's Bar on Weed Street. But the Charity Jam is going to be an incredible night, a lot of fun. We have 6 of our buddies coming up from Nashville that are songwriters, that have been very successful in that business. Jonathan Singleton is coming up, and he's, we're at 7 number 1 hits. So then we're going to have a few surprises along the way, maybe some bigger country acts stop in to play a few songs. But, really we just want to raise money. Last year, Jake got on the bandwagon with the pancreatic cancer when Daryl Ackerfield, his former bullpen coach of the Padres, passed away. And actually, we lost our grandmother this past January to cancer as well. So the cancer research has been big on Jake's heart as of late. So all the money we raise through the net raffle and through the charity jam will be given to cancer research.
Would you say that's what the majority of his charity is for, or the foundation just donates overall?
No. I would say within the past year, the majority of the monies went to cancer research, but we also have basically three main, charities that we support where Jake is actually on the board. And one is Strike Out for Troops, which is Barry Zito's nonprofit, which is, kind of do a lot of stuff with, wounded veterans and stuff. We had a private concert for about 120 of them in spring training. We do that every year. We bring the guys in. You're talking about triple amputees and stuff, and Barry hosts them for a day at the Giants complex, and Jake hosts them. Then we do a private concert for them that night. So we do Strike Out for Troops. We also do Autism Speaks. That's something that's close to Jake's heart. He's just always had a knack for it. Then we do another thing called Team Focus, which is a Mobile, Alabama-based charity, and it's basically a big brother, big sister program, and it gives mentors to fatherless boys ages 8 to 18 and motherless girls ages 8 to 18.
That's really great. I mean, I definitely didn't know that he kind of was involved in all those other worlds. I did know a lot about Ackerfield in San Diego and how, here I believe he either took the game off, or I know he had the little insignia on the back of his hat for a couple of games there. How did he kind of deal with that? And I know that was kind of a big mentor in his life.
Yeah, Jake and Hack were very, very close. Jake was in San Diego. I lived out there for a few years with him, and him and Ack were as close as anybody. And Jake took it very, very hard. And I think what Jake took the hardest was not being able to see him as much as he would like. The last day, so to speak, of his life. I know Jake, flew a couple late nights after night games, would hop on the jet, and if he was on the West Coast, and fly down and literally see him for 5 or 6 hours in the middle of the night just to be there with him. I'll never forget the day. Or the start after Ack had passed. I really didn't know how Jake was going to do it. He called me probably 4 or 5 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game, bawling, crying like a baby. And it was just, he meant that much to Jake. I know Jake put it on his hat. He also got it stitched into his glove, which a lot of people don't know. He actually only pitched with that once because he said he couldn't keep looking down and seeing it.
Wow. That's pretty deep. Is there anything else that you would like to add about the charity before we kind of move on to our next topics? Obviously he's doing a lot of great things. Like we said, there's no athlete or celebrity or even person with money has to do this, but they choose to do it out of their heart. So it's all pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Jake, definitely does it, from the heart, like you said. It's not about any kind of accolades or praise or anything. Like I said, it took us, 5 or 6 years to get him to come around to being as vocal about it as he is. But I just encourage everybody that's in Chicago to come out and have a good night with us on June 23rd at Joe's on Weed Street. 3 different ticket prices for the thing: $25 to get you in the door, $75 to get you in the door, a couple free drinks, free food. And then you can do the $200 VIP level, which is all you can eat, all you can drink, and hang out in the VIP area with Jake, all the other White Sox players, and all the musicians.
Luke, I do have one follow-up question for you, and maybe I just missed it earlier, but is somebody able to just freely donate to any of these charities?
Yes, all the other ones. As far as if you wanted to just donate to the 3 main ones that we do, yes, you can via their websites, which is Team Focus, Strike Out for Troops, or Autism Speaks. We are actually in the process of remodeling Jake's website. It's another thing. Jake's not very hip on technology, so we've had to bring him around. So he had a website for a while. It was a picture of him, and that was it. So we're actually getting that built out now. It's supposed to be ready by opening day, but just had some setbacks. And once we get that done, it'll be jakepeavy44.com, and they'll have tabs to the foundations, to everything we kind of support. You can, give online if you wanted to.
So that's if somebody wanted to donate, you just direct them to jakepeavy44.com.
Yes, and I would tell them to give us maybe like another month.
Okay, great, wonderful.
And run it.
Well, kind of turning it to something that I think anybody would ask you when it comes to your brother. Your brother's had a lot of injuries in the past, but he's been really in the past 2 seasons has been able to really turn it around, and that's something that a lot of athletes, especially pitchers who are injured, aren't able to do. Kind of what makes him different than everybody else? I mean, obviously he's, like I said, he's turned it around, and the average pitcher and athlete is not able to.
I think Jake's determination is really unrivaled. He has an incredible work ethic, and he has an incredible determination to prove people wrong. After the last injury where he tore his lat, he really was skeptical he would ever throw a baseball again. And then, he just had all these people kind of keep throwing that out there. And I think it kind of really sparked a fire with him to kind of prove people wrong, to be able to get back. Because I'm pretty much after his 2007 Cy Young season, everything else was pretty much, injury. And I think he had a lot of, naysayers saying he was past his prime and that he would never, so-called regain that form. And I think that it just deep down, it really got to him, and he's an absolutely fierce competitor. You can obviously get a hint of that when you watch him constantly yelling at himself after every pitch. He talks to himself in between pitches, which is very odd. But I mean, down to a game of horse in the gym when he's back home between me and him, or a game of ping pong. If you guys watch that, you would think we were playing for the world title. Everything he does is so intense. Whether it's down to just training, throwing a bullpen, his intensity level is always maxed out. I really think that's what kind of sets him apart.
That's great. I mean, I am myself, I'm a White Sox fan, and I do watch a lot of games, and I mean, I see the talking to himself, the yelling at himself. I mean, he seems very hard on himself, which is kind of almost a unique characteristic with him. I mean, where's that come from? I have no idea where it originated, but he's always been that way. I don't know if it's something that my father instilled in us, because I felt like growing up, it was, you go 3 for 4 with 3 home runs, but you strike out once. My dad was kind of, well, why'd you strike out? Kind of father. So, I think that kind of might fuel it with Jake. Just that, I guess he thinks so like he should be at a certain level, and if he's not at that, he's very disappointed. He can go out and give up 1 run over 7 innings and get beat 1-0, and he's gonna take the blame all on himself. And deep down, he really believes that he lost that game, no matter what else happened.
You were mentioning a little bit earlier about his injuries and coming back from injuries, and his work ethic. Can you give us just a little bit of background on how hard he just had to train? I mean, coming back from 3 injuries consecutive, it's got to wear you down. But can you give us a little background as to what kind of the rehab process and how hard he trained to get back to where he is now?
Yeah, the rehab process was obviously not as long as people really, expected it to be. There was really no bar to measure by, because it was, the first of his kind to have the surgery and to try to bounce back as far as completely being torn off the bone. So I wasn't really sure, but it pretty much started with him, a few days after surgery. He's the kind of guy that after surgery, he had it in Chicago. We flew up for it. And I'm talking about as soon as we left the hospital, 2 hours after surgery, we went and ate dinner at Sweetwater, and then he walked home 8 blocks to his house. He wouldn't get in the car, and he just kept saying, well, I got to start somewhere. So it really, it started a few hours after his surgery, and that whole entire rest of the year in the off season, he was in the gym, 4 or 5 hours a day, constantly doing stuff. I know when I used to train with him out in San Diego, before he would go to spring training, we would spend, 6-7 hours a day at the gym, and then, go throw. But he's a very big, swimmer. He loves to swim. So we actually have an indoor swimming lane, in the gym at home. And, he spent a lot of hours in the gym coming back from that surgery, a lot of hours in the pool, and, just really pushing himself, to get back better than he was.
You want to believe that all athletes do that, but I know that's not the norm, and it's quite amazing to hear that someone works that hard. Talking 3 hours after a surgery.
Yeah, I followed Jake's career for quite a while now, and coming from somebody who's kind of been on the outside, it definitely gives you a new perspective and a new appreciation for guys that can work that hard. So, it's a wonderful story, both, to learn about the charities and then how hard he's had to work to come back. And I think if there's anything, you can just love the fighting spirit that he has more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. He also felt like he had a little bit of owing to Chicago. He always felt very badly about constantly being hurt since he had been there. And I think that wants to go back to proving people wrong, but I also felt like that, he owed Chicago a little bit. And deep down, he has never said this, but I really felt like that's why he re-signed after last season with Chicago. He loves it so much. He loves the fans and the team that they have. And I felt like deep down he still felt like he owed them a few good years.
One last quick question here. I know there's been, at least here in the city, a lot of rumors of trades because they didn't start out so hot. I know you really can't tell us anything, but kind of how does he feel about the team now and what's going on with him in the city, if you can say anything at all?
Yeah, well, I actually talked to him. I was in New York a few weeks ago, and we discussed it a little bit. Obviously, with this concert coming up and stuff, I know it wouldn't be that soon, but we intended to have this concert last year in July, but we put it off because thinking he might get traded. We discussed it a little bit. He loves this team. He absolutely loves the coaching staff. And we were kind of looking at the situation. And it's like Hawk said the other night, watching a game, really the team is at the same exact position that it was at this point in the season last year. I don't think you can completely go ahead and, say they're done for the year. But then again, you never know. And I really have no inclination of the trade thing. I just know that Jake wants to win. He would love to win in Chicago, but I think as the years keep going by, who wouldn't want to, possibly go somewhere and try to win it all.
I have one last question about the charity. Where do you see, the Jake Peavy Foundation going from here and moving forward, and kind of what you guys have in the future?
I think definitely keep along the lines of these big events we're having. We had our first big golf tournament last year in our hometown of Mobile. Very successful, raised a lot of money. This is our first concert we're kind of doing. Jake did Wood Jock a few years ago in spring training, but it wasn't a success financially. So I just think to continually keep growing these events and use Jake's platform with these events to be able to keep bringing in more money to be able to give away. That's what I keep telling Jake. I know that the whole cancer research thing has been near and dear to our hearts as of late with AC and my grandmother. So I definitely think that will continue in that aspect, far as the whole cancer research thing and fighting that. But Jake also has a huge passion for music. as most of you guys probably know. And I feel like, I see us in the next few years trying to maybe team up with some of these the hospitals that do the music and therapy programs for the kids. Something that me and Jake's discussed, and I think we are going to go check it out. There's one in Chicago here the next few weeks. So, but just definitely continue using Jake's platform and building, off the stuff we did the year before to have a goal every year of just raising more money to be able to give away to people that need it.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I guess that's all the questions we're going to have for you today, Luke. Really, thanks for taking some time out to talk with us and give us some insight to kind of the charity and what goes on, and some insight into your brother's life. I mean, it's like Ryan said, I'm already a Sox fan, but it gives me even more an appreciation for him. And I know my two co-hosts are not Sox fans, but I mean, it just kind of gives you an appreciation for someone who works as hard as they do.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks again, Luke, for coming by. Now, speaking of injuries, Curtis Granderson came back from injury, and he's back on the disabled list.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little before we were recording. I think no matter how you view it, Yankees unlucky or whatever, I mean, they just can't catch a break with the injuries right now. He's here, and I mean, same game that he comes back, essentially, he's gone, and he's got a broken knuckle, and I mean, they're saying, I think 4 weeks at the very least he'll be out. I've heard up to like 2 or 3 months with this, and I mean, I know they're going to get Mark Teixeira back soon. It's just, they just cannot catch a break with these injuries right now, but it doesn't seem to be hurting them.
Yeah, I said the same thing. It couldn't be any more unfortunate for the Yankees, but fortunately for them, it may be almost a blessing in disguise the way they're playing right now. You don't want to have him come in and disrupt the way they're flowing together and the way they're playing. So, I mean, maybe it's unfortunate, yes, that he got injured, and you never want to see somebody get injured. But at the same time, hopefully it all works out for him, because like you just said, Josh, it couldn't have happened at a worse time. Well, actually, I guess there's not a worse time because they're playing well, but it's just unfortunate because they can't just seem to get healthy, but they're playing so well that maybe it's going to be okay.
I don't know, man. Anytime you're not having someone in your lineup that can hit 40 home runs in a season, that's still pretty big. I don't care how well you're playing or how good you are. That's still prime contribution. I mean, you need that, especially out of a number 7, 8 hitter that he is.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm kind of an asshole about it, but I like the way the Yankees are playing, because I like that they're playing real baseball. But yeah, I agree. I mean, if he's a big home run hitter, but I really don't think it's going to hurt him that much. I mean, they're doing so good without these injured players right now that, I mean, they're just going to continue doing good without the injured players.
Yeah, I kind of am on the same page. I mean, I like seeing the Yankees play the way they are. I think they're playing really well together right now. I feel bad for Curtis Granderson because he's, losing this almost a half a season to injuries that are completely unfortunate, but hopefully he'll come back and he'll make an impact. But I like the way the Yankees are playing without him right now. So yeah, it's sad on Granderson's part, but at the same time, the Yankees are doing well without him.
Agreed on all sides here that they're playing good without him, but it'll help if he comes back. Moving on to our next topic, kind of some of the biggest news of the playing week was Mike Trout hitting for the cycle. I know some of us on this podcast aren't as impressed, but Mike Trout is the youngest player in the American League to ever hit for the cycle, and I mean, he did it in pretty incredible fashion, hitting a home run in the bottom of the 9th to cap off the cycle.
It wasn't incredible. They were already up, 9, 10 runs? It was a worthless home run. If it was a go-ahead or winning home run, then you could say it's incredible. But the fact that they were already shutting out and were up by 9 or 10 runs to nothing, it's not that incredible, Josh.
I think it is. I mean, a lot of times you hit your home run as your first or second hit in the cycle. Not too often are people hitting their home run as their final hit in the cycle. I mean, when you know you need that kind of stuff, like it kind of gets to your head mentally, and a lot of times people can't kind of go through with it. And to me, it's nice that he was able to put the icing on the cake.
Or who knows? Maybe they could have just served him up, a nice easy fastball for him, because they're like, we're already down 10-0. He just needs the home run. Here, hit it.
Does anybody willingly give that stuff up? I mean, I don't think any team wants to be the team that Mike Trout hits a cycle off of.
There was a story once of it was a Detroit pitcher, and he was facing Mickey Mantle, and pretty much just said, here you go. If you can hit it right down the pipe. Because Mantle needed like one more home run to get X amount of home runs for his career. I mean, his career was over, so.
Yeah.
You know, I know you two have been kind of arguing about this back and forth all week, and after it happened, obviously it's a pretty good feat for anybody to do it. I think maybe it got blown out a little bit of proportion because it was Mike Trout. Obviously, he's kind of like the LeBron James of MLB because he's so great. I think maybe it did get blown out of proportion, but anytime somebody hits for the cycle, I don't think you can really discount it based upon what the score is, what the situation of the game, because for somebody to get, the home run, the single, double, triple all in one game, it's a pretty big feat. It really is. And for anybody to accomplish it, it shouldn't be taken lightly, but at the same time, it happens more. It's been happening more frequently. So maybe, like I said, it did get blown a little bit out of proportion, but I think the guy should get a pat on the back for it anyways, regardless of if it's Mike Trout or not.
No, I agree with you, Ryan. I mean, cycles happen a lot. I mean, I think there's 200 odd players that have hit for the cycle. It's like a no-hitter. It did get blown out of proportion because it was Trout. I mean, let's say Ike Davis of the Mets did it tomorrow. Do you think ESPN would show much about it? They'd just be like, he did it. Whereas Trout, he gets like an hour-long special.
Well, that's what I said. I mean, Mike Trout is LeBron James of the MLB, and rightfully so. I mean, he's done a lot for baseball in the short year and a half, maybe not even year that he's been there, right? He hasn't quite been in the league a year yet.
They might be coming on like 162 games at this point, but he started just before All-Star break last year. And now we're not even to All-Star break, so we're coming right on a year, if somewhere around there. I don't know that it's been exactly a year, but around the year. Him and Harper are in the same boat. Like, they both haven't played a full MLB season yet.
And I guess I'm discounting the fact a little bit that he's the youngest player to do it. I guess age for me doesn't really matter too much because he's a great ball player all the way around.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't think you can take it lightly, and you don't want to discount it just because they were winning big time in the game.
Yeah, I agree.
I wasn't discounting him hitting the cycle wasn't big. It was just Josh's icing on the cake, the home run. It was like, it's not that spectacular of a home run.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not saying because of the cycle we should enshrine Mike Trout in the Hall of Fame already. I'm just saying, like, it is notable.
Your text begged to defer, sir.
There is things that just don't happen that often. And someone of his age and his little professional experience, I mean, everything that we argue, whether it's him and Miguel Cabrera or him and Bryce Harper, or no matter what the argument is about him, I mean, we always have to remember how little time this man has been in the league and how much he's done. I mean, this is stuff that people of his age, I mean, rarely have ever done in the history of the sport. Like, he is a very young player breaking records, and it's not something that happens with people his age all the time. Is he the best player in all of baseball? In my eyes, yes, I love him, and I would argue that he is. But the reality is, no, there are better players than Mike Trout in the league. But I think, and I'm not saying you, Carl, or anybody on here, but I think some people in baseball do discount Trout a lot because there's better left fielders than him and center fielders, and I mean, there's people who are hitting more home runs than him, and I mean, he's arguably not really helping his team very much because they still fucking suck. Like,
They're playing better.
Yeah. And I do think that he gets kind of discounted a little bit because of those things, but I think people need to remember the age and the experience and how little of it there is there.
Look, here's the thing, Josh, you hit it directly on the head. You couldn't have been any more accurate with the way you put it. And to kind of clear up my point, the reason he's getting all these accolades and this attention is because he's doing things at an age that a player of his age shouldn't be doing. The rate he's hitting, the way he's playing, it hasn't been seen before for anybody. I mean, this is not only a year in the league yet, and he's already doing things that players who have been in the league for 10, 15 years are doing. And the way, the pace at which he's hitting, the way he's playing, it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. And I think the cycle is just another accolade for him to chalk up. And like I said, him being so young and doing the things he's doing, it's never been seen before.
I mean, there's been teenage prodigies before. I mean, A-Rod was, and Ken Griffey Jr. was. That's who Trout reminds me of, would be like a Ken Griffey Jr. It's just...
I don't think Ken Griffey Jr. quite had the numbers that Trout's had the numbers so far in his career. I'd have to look, but I don't think it's close.
I don't think he has either. And I'm not saying nobody of younger age has ever done it. I'm sure there has been players. I mean, anybody who listens to this and knows the history of baseball probably can school me on this 100%. But I'm sure there have been players. I mean, talking back to Ted Williams and Babe Ruth and whatnot, I think you will see that some of these older players have done it, but I'm just saying in recent time, basically throughout the history of baseball, no matter what, someone of this age, whether it's been done before or not, it's still impressive that he's doing it. And he's doing it at the rate that he is. And I mean, like I said, he's right around maybe 1 year into the league, but he's not really even a full season into the league yet. And it's impressive to me, at least.
I would like to say that I do not think he will win a batting title until he's at least 21 or 22.
Maybe.
And that's a legit concern, you know. And everybody has their opinions, and maybe he won't as long as Miguel Cabrera is in the league, because Cabrera is just an outstanding hitter. But for somebody to put up the numbers he's doing this early in his career and at that young of age, I think you have to look at it and say that's impressive. No matter if you're a fan of him, if you like him, if you don't, you have to.
Absolutely. Speaking of Miguel Cabrera, this hopefully we'll keep this short and brief, but Barry Bonds this past week did an interview, something he doesn't do very often. He had some comments about Miguel Cabrera, and basically the gist of it is he said Miguel Cabrera is very talented, blah, 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 basically has the mindset that I have about Miguel Cabrera. He's very talented. You can't take that away from him. He's an amazing hitter. But Barry Bonds said he was better. And I personally don't disagree with that. Overall, is Cabrera a stand-up, just outright hitter better than him? Yes. But to me, I'm a big defense guy. I like pitching, I like fielding, and that's where I might differ on sabermetrics and all this stuff. I like fielding and defense, and to me, Barry Bonds was an awesome outfielder, even towards the end. I mean, was he the greatest towards the end? No, but I mean, he still was a pretty decent outfielder, even when things were kind of going south for him. And I agree. I think Barry Bonds overall was a better player. Was he a better hitter? I don't know. But was he a better player than Miggy? Absolutely.
For anybody that may not know what was said, I have the quote in front of me, so I'm gonna read it word for word. And I'm probably not gonna read the whole thing, but I just want to kind of sum up what he said. And this is directly from what he said. And this is Barry Bonds. So, quote, he's definitely the best. It's not rocket science here. He's the best, by far, without a doubt. The absolute best. I don't try to compare me to anybody. I was the best on the field. I did more things than he did. My game was different than his, so comparing him to me, there's no comparison. He doesn't have my MVPs. He doesn't have my numbers. Well, not yet, anyways. But he does have the ability. Yes, he does. Does he have the gift? Yes, he does. End quote. And that's what Barry Bonds said. So if you want to, that's the direct quote from Barry Bonds. As far as my opinion on it, is Miguel Cabrera a better all-around ball player than Barry Bonds? No. Barry Bonds had gold gloves. He was a better outfielder. He was a little bit more agile, maybe a little bit better of an athlete. I think definitely.
What?
I think definitely Cabrera is going to go down as a better hitter than Bonds will all around. Bonds has the home runs. He beats him in home runs, but as far as being an all-around better player, I don't know if you can make that argument.
I'm just saying, before the trade to San Francisco, when Barry Bonds was a Pittsburgh Pirate, hell yes, he was a great defender, deserved gold gloves. I mean, he was small, he was agile, but you cannot tell me he was agile when he had no fucking neck. The man was built like Arnold. You cannot be that defensive and be agile and be that big.
Was he the best outfielder when he was in San Francisco? Absolutely
Hell
not.
No.
But he was he was a better outfielder than Miguel Cabrera as third baseman.
Well, then maybe Cabrera should even move. Look, he was even Miguel Cabrera is even a better teammate than Barry Bonds.
I'll give you that.
That's not even the argument, though.
I'll give you that. But yeah,
but player.
That's being part of being a ball player.
I would agree with you, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But there's no awards for being a teammate, and frankly, that's not really what the statement was about. The statement was all about being a better player, not home run hitter, a better player. And if I was building a team, I would rather have him in the. If I could only spend the money on one of those two guys, I'd rather have Bonds in the outfield than Cabrera on third base.
Absolutely not. I mean, like he said, he could hit the long ball. That was pretty much it.
I would.
So what if he's a home run threat and a threat to get walked 200 times a year?
But he wasn't getting walked because he had like this great eye for the pitch. He was getting walked because nobody wanted to pitch to him because he was that threat.
I know, and I get that, and I'm not going to take that away from him.
I think you guys are both. I don't know if you're missing a point, but there's a huge thing that you guys are leaving out. Barry Bonds did this all during the so-called steroid era. Barry Bonds hit these home runs from age 42 to 47. He had those, or I think it was 42 to 49 when he had those 7 great years in San Francisco. And yes, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. If you're going all-around better player, I think you'd have to go with Barry Bonds if you're going all around better player, just for the simple fact that he did win multiple Gold Gloves. He was a good outfielder. He had a little bit of mobility, not towards the end of the career, but in the beginning of his career. And Miguel Cabrera's never really been known for his glove. And I don't think anybody, I don't know. I think Miguel Cabrera will go down as one of, if not the best hitter of all time.
Absolutely.
But being the best all around, but being a better all around ball player than Barry Bonds, I think it's debatable.
I agree. Miguel Cabrera is not a great third baseman. He wasn't a great first baseman before Prince got there. He's just, if I put Miguel Cabrera at any place on my lineup, if I was Jim Leland, he would be either first base or DH. I mean, that's in my eyes where he belongs, because at first base you can kind of that's where you put all the old guys and slow guys. I mean, you don't really have to be that fast over there. I mean, I think you should be, but most teams don't have. They keep their slowest, oldest kind of old farts over at first base. But I mean, that's just my opinion, and I don't think he's a great fielder. And to me, I mean, like I said, if I was the GM of a team, which I am nowhere near smart enough to be a GM of a team, but if I was and I was building a team, I would rather have Bonds in the outfield and hitting for me because he was a decent outfielder. Was he the greatest outfielder of all time? Absolutely not. That would be a scam to say that. But he was a decent outfielder and a great hitter, where Cabrera is a great hitter and a shitty third baseman.
The thing is, though, if you're talking about building a franchise around Barry Bonds in the outfield, you got to specify, man, you want the young, speedy, Eddie Murphy-looking Barry Bonds, or do you want the old, just hitter?
Anybody would rather have the young Barry Bonds. I mean, because he was, even sabermetrics-wise, he was an overall better player. He got on base, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, I'd take the home runs too, and I would take the ailing, aging Barry Bonds also.
I mean, because they're two different hitters. I mean, young Barry Bonds and old Barry Bonds, those are two completely different hitters.
Well, what if Miguel Cabrera has these spectacular years right now, and then sometime down the line he declines? What's the argument then?
Well, I can imagine he declines, because everyone does, except, the aforementioned Bonds, under the circumstances that he didn't really decline as much.
I mean, statistically, Barry Bonds got better as he got older. But once again, it came in the steroid era. So, I mean, do you discount that? Do you put a price on it? I don't know. It's almost, for me, it's like apples and oranges. I guess I could pick either one.
I'm just saying, the first 10 years Bonds was in the league, he wasn't hitting 30 home runs and 100 RBIs his first 10 years.
But look at his on-base percentage. It was there. Sabermetrics-wise, I mean, for all the sabermetrics folks out there, he was doing it. He was getting on base. Was he cranking out home runs? Absolutely not, but he was getting on base.
Okay, yeah, so he was getting on base.
I mean, so he was hitting then. He hit towards the end of his career, which Cabrera is both going to do. Do I think Cabrera will end up having more home runs? I think Cabrera won't stay in the league as long, and without steroids, I'm not sure that he'll have more. But I think we can all agree that Cabrera will be viewed as a better hitter than Bonds ever was. But if we're talking overall player, we're not just talking hitting, we're not just talking the end of their career, we're talking from beginning to end, we're talking Bonds in his prime, which arguably is the steroid era, which arguably is when he was least agile and mobile.
But everybody was doing it at the same time, too.
Yeah. Or Cabrera this year, last year, I'd say this year he's probably statistically doing better than he was last year. I would take Bonds. I have a big emphasis in my head about fielding. I obviously hitting, you have to hit to score runs, and in the end that comes. But I mean, if you can't just simply get the out on the field when it's there, then I don't know. I would rather have the defense.
I think if Miguel Cabrera would have stayed at first base, you could have made an argument that Miguel Cabrera was a better defensive player because he was wonderful at first base. But as a third baseman, he hasn't been too impressive as a defensive third baseman. So I guess if you're comparing the two, for me, I really don't know. It's a toss up for me. I guess it could go either way. It also depends on which era you're picking players on and what kind of, I don't know. And for anybody that's listening to this podcast and downloads this podcast, we'd love to hear your reaction at our Facebook or Twitter. So definitely hit us up there and let us know what you think about this, because it sounds like all three of us are kind of off, have different views on this. So we'd love to hear what everybody else thinks about this as well. Well, I mean, it's a topic. People are going to debate about it.
Yeah,
right.
I think.
And neither of us really agree on who we're taking. I think Josh and I are closer, but you are pretty far on the other end. I mean, you could go for days about this, honestly.
Yeah,
well, and
we don't want to go for days, and
right.
I think I know I dog Miggy a lot, and I will never give Miggy the credit that he is, because you know what? Too many people are on his bandwagon, and that's just not me. I avoid the bandwagon as hard as I can, except for with Trout and LeBron James in basketball, but for the most part I try to avoid bandwagons. That's why I'm from Michigan and I'm not a Tigers fan. Tigers got good when I started liking baseball, so I didn't want to be the guy who jumped on the Tigers bandwagon when they got good. Good for the people who have always been Tigers fans, good for all of that going on. That's just not me. So I admittedly will never give Cabrera the credit that he is due. He is a great hitter. I don't want to take anything away from him. The Tigers are amazingly lucky to have him. Awesome. Way to go, Cabrera. I will
always be here to defend him.
But in the end, I think Barry Bonds is a better player. Moving on, keeping it from, I guess, loosely in California, Don Mattingly went through a lot this week. Essentially, earlier last week, he, without warning or consulting anybody, posted the lineup, and Andre Ethier was not in the lineup. While not the face of the franchise, he is kind of one of their bigger name players. And he benched him without consulting him, without what anybody thought was consulting anybody. He benched him. It became a big deal. They won the game, and they lost the next game, but they've actually won quite a few games since then. And they're doing halfway decent. I mean, by no means are they ready to upset the league, but they're kind of getting back in line. And later came out that he had the support from his GM and basically everybody above him. They essentially told him, do whatever it takes to win. If it means moving pitchers into position, whatever, it doesn't matter. Do whatever it takes to win a game. And it seems like maybe they were holding him back before, and now he's, quote unquote, doing whatever it takes to win, and they're winning. I mean, they're not going undefeated by any means or going on this crazy win streak, but they are winning games.
Yeah, and I say good for Don Mattingly, man. I mean, I give him a huge thumbs up for this. How many managers would have actually had the balls to do that? Take one of your best players and then bench him at a moment's notice? I mean, in an era where players are considered, are more valuable than the managers, I mean, good for Mattingly. And especially if he finds out that this actually works for them, then that's a huge hell yeah on his part that, hey, look, I'm running this team. This is my team. I'm going to go down with this team, or I'm going to be responsible for this team playing well. So in my eyes, that was a very, very good move for Mattingly to make.
And I agree with you, Ryan. I mean, good for Don Mattingly. Keep it up, man.
I mean, how many managers would actually have the balls to go on and bench one of your players without even telling them? I mean, you're going to find very few managers that will actually do that, maybe outside of Buck Showalter or I mean, I don't even know, but hell yeah for Don Mattingly there.
I would like to see Mike Scioscia do this across town. I mean, you got to start benching people like Hamilton and whatnot. But yeah, I agree, guys. I love it. I think that this prima donna era of athletes, like, you shouldn't have to. If you're the manager of a team, you shouldn't have to consult with these athletes. I mean,
you shouldn't have to coddle them. Absolutely not.
And so, I mean, yeah, we're all kind of on the same page. Awesome, and keep going. And I mean, do what you got to do.
moving on to our next topic, talking about struggling teams and players. Jim Johnson blew his 4th save out of 5 opportunities yet last night. What do you guys kind of think on Jim Johnson and the issues he's having closing games lately?
It's weird to see. I mean, we're talking about maybe 2 weeks ago, this man had literally the most saves in baseball. And now, I mean, like you said, he blew 4 out of 5 chances in the past couple weeks. I mean, as a closer, I mean, that's what you get paid to do. We've talked about this in the past with my White Sox closer, Addison Reed, and Jose Valverde over in Detroit with you guys. I mean, this is what you get paid to do. That's your job. I mean, this is like if you work on a factory line and you get paid to put spark plugs in the car. I mean, that's what you get paid to do. You don't miss the car. You don't miss and put a spark plug in. I mean, if you blow 1 save, I mean, it's going to happen. That happens. But you can't blow 4 out of 5. I mean,
yeah, 4 out of 5 is a bad week. I mean, like you said, Jim Johnson, even as much as 2 weeks ago, was leading MLB in saves, and I just, I don't know. It's hard. The only thing you can hope to understand is that maybe he's injured and that there's something wrong with the arms. I mean, like you said, he gets paid to come in and get 3 outs at the end of the game, and that's his job. And to blow 4 out of 5, that's a problem. That's a huge problem for the Baltimore Orioles, and they've got to figure this one out sooner rather than later. But you just hope that maybe something's either not mentally wrong. After the first 2, it becomes a mental problem. But I hope that he's not injured. But you never know.
Well, Ryan, I think you said it best there, that it could be mental. I've heard and read stories of how closers have to be mentally, prepared for the 9th and whatnot, so it could be in his head. So maybe what they need to do is pull a Don Mattingly and just bench him and tell him, hey, get your mind ready, get straight, and let's do this.
Yeah, I think after 1, you live with it. 2, you start to worry. I think probably after the second one, you need to find somebody else to close for, a game in between there. They just can't keep running them out there, hoping that it's going to get better. Because like you said, and I said it, and I think we've kind of agreed a little bit on it, that it's a mental thing. And you saw, I hate to keep bringing Valverde back up, but you saw it last year how he got in his own head, things started to go wrong, and he was just never the same after he blew a couple saves. So we hope that Jim Johnson gets this figured out. And, it's part on him, part on the Blue Jays or the Orioles, because I don't think they can keep running him out after 2 or 3 blown saves. They got to give him a night off and let him get his head right.
Well, I love the man, but, you got to partly blame Buck Showalter on this. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you see, like you guys said, you seen in Detroit with Valverde, his ass was on the bench real quick. And
to be fair, that was the postseason. Little different circumstances.
Yeah, but I think Valverde, if he would have done that, same point, and if he would have done it before the All-Star break, you would have seen him start blowing these big caliber saves. He would have been benched too. So I think any closer would. I mean, you've seen it recently here in Chicago with the Cubs. The Cubs have went through Marmol, and I don't know what the guy from Japan's name is right now, but I mean,
no one knows the Cubs anyway, so it's fine.
But yeah, I mean, it's you've seen it here, and you've seen that the Marmol blew 3 saves, and he was gone, and then they brought in this dude from Japan. And then he blew 2 saves, and then Marmol was back. You just don't let it go this long.
Yeah, I think, like I said, one is okay. You live with 1. 2 is a problem. After 3, you got to reevaluate, and especially playing in the East with Boston and New York and Tampa Bay right behind them. It's going to be such a close battle at the end of the season. You can't afford to let a guy keep going out there to get his mind right. I think you have to rectify the situation as quick as possible. And even if that means sitting his ass on the bench for, a week or so, that's what you got to do.
Well, yeah, something needs to happen because, this was a team that everyone expected to compete. Obviously, that whole division is kind of on its ass from what anybody thought it was going to be. But, this is a team almost across the board on anyone's board. Maybe not, they didn't expect them to win in first, but whether it be a wild card or somehow, everyone expected this team to be a team, and they're not competing right now.
No, absolutely not.
They started the season out competing, but if we're talking the past 2 weeks, they're not competing. They're a non-issue in that division.
speaking of closer issues, the Cleveland Indians, who had been winning, recently put their closer, Chris Perez, on the DL. What is Terry Francona going to do now?
I don't think he has reason to worry yet. I mean, we haven't really seen where it goes from here. Overall, I think the Indians have been playing great. I mean, the three of us are all fans of different teams in the American League Central, arguably, in a lot of people's eyes, the worst division in baseball. And, I mean, for a minute there, they were giving the Tigers a run for their money. I mean, obviously, they're now in second place. They're only a game and a half back, but, I mean, they're 2.5 after today, I guess. And, I mean, arguably, they're a good team, and they're competing. And even if they're not in first, I mean, they've been given some of the bigger teams like Texas and whatnot run for their money.
Well, do you think they're going to be able to hang around the rest of the season, Josh?
I really don't know where the season goes from here in the American League Central. I think to say that the Tigers aren't going to win the Central would be, I can't lie about that. I mean, there's no way that you can say that. Maybe if it picks up, the Indians could win a wild card, but I really don't know where it's going because even my White Sox are improving. We've won 9 of our last 12. We went from being 12 games out of first place. Now we are only 4 games out of first place. I mean, we've even picked things up and we're doing better at this point than we were last year. And we led the division for like 80% of the season last year. So I don't know where this is going. I mean, Tigers could slump. I think the Indians are really good. I love Francona as a manager. To say that they don't stand a chance I would be lying, but to also say that they're going to be able to kind of outrun with the Tigers, I can't confidently say that. They're a great team. I think that they will continue giving the Tigers some issues this year. But to say that they're the best, I can't say that.
Yeah, I don't. The jury's still kind of out for me on the Indians. They've got to find out how to win. They're kind of a young team, and I think they still kind of have to find out how to win together and become a great team. I think Francona's definitely got them on the right path. But let me, I guess, regress a little bit. As of this previous Tuesday, the 21st, they were 2.5 games up on the Tigers, and since Tuesday, the 21st, they've now lost 6 out of 7. And the Tigers have now gone 2.5 up to them, but they've in this recent losing streak they played 2 against the Tigers, in which they lost both. They played 3 against the Red Sox, in which they won 1. I'm sorry, they lost 3 out of 4 against the Red Sox, and they've got 2 against the Reds. 4 against the Reds in back-to-backs, and then they've got the Rays. They've got a pretty brutal schedule. So they've got the Rays next weekend, and then the Yankees, and then back to Detroit. So they've got a pretty brutal schedule. So if they can make it through the schedule and be okay, then I think that they're definitely heading in the direction. But like you said, Josh, who knows if the Tigers will still be there? I don't know. I think they're a good ball team. They got to learn to win.
Yeah, I don't think the Tigers are going anywhere. I would love to say that my White Sox are going to turn the season around and give everybody a run for their money, but I mean, that would just me being a fanboy and being blind to the facts. And I mean, the facts are they're not a great team. I'm more shocked that Kansas City is playing as shitty as they are. I mean, that was a team that I expected to kind of take the cake this year. I mean, I didn't expect the Indians to do that well, so I'm shocked that they're doing as good as they are, but I expected Kansas City to be right there with Detroit this year.
I think a lot of people did. They have some really good young pitching.
Yeah, I'm more shocked than anything that Kansas City's doing as shitty as they are. So, I mean, the Twins don't shock me in this division at all, but I don't know. Like I said,
do you think Ron Gardenhire's seat's getting a little warm?
It's got to be.
Maybe.
They've had a lot of injuries too, so I think that has a little bit to do with it. But Josh, I definitely think you probably drink a little bit more, Royals Kool-Aid than a lot of other people. And if they do it every year, they get off to a hot start and then they kind of fall behind. I think the definite, I'm still picking the Tigers just by default. I don't think another team. It doesn't even matter that the Tigers may not be as good as a lot of other teams in the AL, but they just have to be better than the teams in their division right now, and I think they definitely are. So I don't think there's another team that's going to give them a run just for the pure and simple fact that these other teams just aren't as good.
Yeah, I would agree.
I
I can't.
I don't want to keep harping on Tigers talk because we don't want to do that. But I think if the Tigers played in a better division, they wouldn't be as good, or they may not win a division. They might be a wild card team, but granted, the division that they're playing in, I think they're probably the most likely candidate just because they're playing in such a terrible division.
I agree. I mean, and like I said, I'm not a Tigers fan, and I mean, the Tigers are the best team in the AL Central, and I mean, I wouldn't say they're the best team in the AL, but they're top 10 team in the AL. I mean, top 5 arguably in the AL, and I mean, they're so much better than every other team. Do I think that they'll stay in first the whole year? Probably not. I think the Indians will probably take over first again. I think my White Sox even stand a chance to maybe a day be in first place because we've been playing so good lately, but I mean, it's not realistic. I mean, the Tigers are just
Okay, would you guys say that Cleveland is the second best team in that division?
Yes.
Josh?
He won't.
No.
Okay, I would say that yes, Cleveland. I would say Cleveland is the second best team in the division. And you guys want to see you guys want to hear their schedule for the first half of June?
Let's get it.
Okay, so the first 2 games in June, 2 against the Rays, then they go for 3 at New York against the Yankees. They have a day off. Then they have 2 against the Tigers at Detroit. They have 3 against the Tigers at Detroit. Then they have 3 against the Rangers at Texas. They have a day off. Tough. Then they have 3 more against the Nationals at home. This is a big time for both the Tigers and Cleveland. If Cleveland can't weather the storm, the Tigers could win this division this week, this coming month, just by default that the Indians may lose a lot of games because they've got such a rough road ahead right now.
I mean, if they have it rough now, that means they're going to get easier at some point in time. I mean, that's just how it works. So if they're getting it rough now, the Tigers are going to get it rough towards the end, and they're going to have it easy. So I just think that that's not really a fair accurate of kind of where they're going. I just
do you think a 7 or 8 game lead would be too much for the Indians to come back from? If the Tigers were to go 7 or 8 up on them right now?
I mean, at a certain point in the season, I mean, if we're talking only 3 weeks left in the season, absolutely. But, I mean, going into All-Star break, absolutely not.
And
I think the White Sox had a 5-game lead on Detroit last year coming out of the All-Star break and fucking blew it out their ass. I mean, there's only, yes, there's a point when the lead matters, but it doesn't really matter that early. I mean, this early in the season. I mean, like I said, my White Sox were down, I think, 13 games out of first place, 12 games ago, and now we're 4 games out of first place. It doesn't, the leads don't matter. I mean, it just matters how you play today, but you're right. They have a hard schedule, but I think they'll have an easier schedule at some other point in time then.
I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at the Tiger schedule, and theirs isn't exactly a cakewalk either right now. I mean, Pittsburgh is probably one of the better National League teams, them and the Diamondbacks, and we haven't really even touched on them.
Yeah.
And then they have to play at Baltimore and then at home versus the Rays.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's I don't want to say it's going to be wide open, but I think that if Cleveland was to fall 6, 7, 8 games back right now, especially early in June, it wouldn't be too much to make up. I think Detroit is definitely one of those teams where they're hot, cold. They play really well for a long period of time, and then they lose a bunch of games, and then they go get out. Detroit's been one of those teams the last few years where it's hot and cold, hot and cold. They don't play up to expectation. They've been kind of lackluster through parts of the season, and then they kick it into high gear. But,
it's because, like, at home they're different teams than on the road, so.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. They're 17-8 at home and then 12-12 on the road. So if they have a long road stretch there, especially playing some good teams, it could be trouble. But I think if anybody's going to give Detroit a run for their money, it's going to be Cleveland, and it has to be Cleveland. Well, that's our episode for the week. We'd like to thank Luke Peavy for joining us.
Just a reminder, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/WoodwithHandles, and on Twitter @WoodwithHandles.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh.
I'm Carl. Please, Ike Davis, hit the cycle to shut Josh up.